Hard Reuben. Oh my God.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 13. Is that lucky 13 or unlucky 13? Yes, it's definitely lucky. This is Hard Reuben's Force-Fed Cafe. Thank you for joining me. One of the things I particularly like to talk about on this podcast is the fact that not all rock stars are millionaires. And while it still happens, most need to find a way to keep living the dream. I like to get to the heart of what musicians and artists do when the amps are unplugged and the lights are out. What do they do to make a living? Some folks are lucky. Some people have unbelievable talent. Some have a combination of the two. But in almost all cases, it takes hard work, dedication, and an unbelievable drive to be able to do the thing we love most. For more than 18 years, my guest today has been laying down the bass for heavy metal band Body Count. You'll probably know Body Count as the band fronted by legendary rap artist turned actor Ice-T. But it is our guest today, Vincent Price, that continues to be a driving force behind Body Count's music and direction, making sure everything is in tip-top shape when founders Ernie C. and Ice-T are ready and their schedule permits them to rock. My buddy Rob connected me with Vincent, and I'm grateful for that. Here's our chat. Let's start with you introducing yourself.
My name is Vincent Dennis. I am the bass player of Body Count and also bass player of Still Profit.
Thank you very much for joining me here today.
Yeah.
I want to. So what I like to do with these conversations is I go back a little bit. Want to try and dive into where people sort of got involved in music in the first place or got into the industry.
Oh, gotcha.
And Rob hooked us up. Rob Shellcross from High on Life Superfoods and Reverse Records hooked us up, and he's a good friend of this show. We talk a lot about surviving the industry. I mean, there's some people that a lot of people get into music. I got into music when I was a teenager, and I had grand visions of we'll call it making it. You have all these idols and heroes and people you look up to, and you just have this notion that they're just rolling in money and they're living the life. And you're playing in Body Count, and obviously Body Count's headed up by Ice-T, who really personified that idea in the 80s, right? And when Body Count came out, I was like, holy crap, that was a huge eye opener for me as not just a fan but a musician, because I was into Ice-T for his rap, which white kid from White Town, Ontario in Canada. It's like, what's happening here? And I like to talk to people about what they do outside of music, or what they do. What's your day job?
Well, my day job is basically I work for bands. That's how I make my living. I'm actually a guitar, keyboard, and bass tech.
Okay. So when did you get into that?
Oh gosh, I've been doing that. Professionally since '99.
All right.
Yeah, because it's like you don't make money, not unless you're playing commercial music back in the '80s, back in the '90s, and you got like hit songs. So that's the only way you're gonna make money in music. Other than that, there's no way of making money in music, not unless you're doing something else illegal.
That's true, and that's one of the things that I try to get into in the show, and we talk a little bit about that, because you get into you get this idea in your head that somebody who's in a band that, and Body Count's pretty much right up there, household name, right?
Right.
Most household names. So you have this idea that anybody that's in that band, and you've been in the band now since what, 2001?
Something like that. Yeah, I've been like almost 16 years now.
Yeah, okay. But you get this idea in your head that's it. You've made it. Like you're doing the thing. I like to talk to people about that, making a living, and that's pretty cool that you're working as a guitar tech. Well, you said guitar, bass, and keyboards tech, so it's good that you're still able to work in the industry. Is it kind of a weird shift to go from being the guy on the stage to the guy at the side of the stage?
No, not really. I mean, basically, when I show up to clubs or venues or arenas or whatever, as a guitar tech or a bass tech, people see me there. And then when I show up as a band member they open their doors right wide open for me because they know me on both sides. So I don't have any problem like showing up in a club or showing up in a venue or a theater or whatever, and people like looking like. I mean, they're there, and they're like, "Hey, Vince, hey, whoa, hey, you're here. Oh, wow, you're here, your band. Hey, what do you need?" You know, it's like I already have my foot in the door already. And as far as being, working in this, as far as a bass keyboard tech, I'm also exposed to new gear, new ideas, and just everything. So when it's time for me to do my own band, I can bring that element into my own band.
You get to approach that from knowing the unsung heroes behind the scenes to the club owners and like it just gives you really sort of a broader depth of the industry that you're working in, right? So that's,
I met how I met Rob was on the Death Clock. I tech for Brendan and Mike Keneally on Death Clock.
Okay, yeah. So there's another metal connection for us.
Yeah. I worked. That's how I met Rob.
I go back with Rob to about 92, and when we were both living up in Ottawa in Canada. Let's back up a little bit, Vincent. So
No problem.
I think we're probably, you, Rob, and I are probably of around the same age.
Oh yeah,
late 40s, early 50s ish.
Yep.
So what's your trajectory? When did you start playing bass? Did you start with bass? Did you start with guitar? When did you start playing music?
Oh my God, I started with saxophone actually.
Okay.
I started with saxophones. It was like back in the elementary high when they give you this paper and it says, okay, what do you want to play or whatever, and you have to like check mark it, get okay with your parents, whatever. Like, oh, play saxophone. All right, sure, no problem. And I played that all the way to like high school, and then my friends had these garage bands, so they were playing like Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, and stuff like that. And I tried to play saxophone along with that, and they're like, "Nah, you can't do that." So they basically start teaching me guitar. So I had to put away the saxophone and start learning how to play guitar. And then my friends needed a bass player for a punk band, so I was in a punk rock at the same time too, and that's how I got into it, was playing in a punk band, and from there I went into heavy metal and so on and so forth.
It's interesting that you say that when you talk about being into punk rock too. I've been meeting more and more people. I feel like when we were teenagers, there was sort of a divide. Though you were either punk or you were metal or you were whatever scene. There was everybody talks about those sort of divides in the genres, but it seems now that everybody's older, a lot of us, we had a foot in one door and we had a foot in the other, and we had the friends on both sides, and it's
right.
like, it's sort of funny how at the time it sometimes seemed like these big barriers were there between the two, but now that you look back, you're like, oh, I get it. It was all really kind of the same stuff.
Yeah, basically, as far as like when I was in the punk rock, there was no metal. There was like, it was more rock than anything when I was in the punk. I was in the punk in like the 80s, and it was like, 82, 83. That was before Motley Crue was even out. Yeah. I was in the punk rock, so there wasn't really any metal bands, so to speak. The metal bands were like, it was huge elsewhere, but it wasn't huge in America.
Yeah,
and nobody really knew about it. It was more underground than anything. Then I got into the underground metal scene, and then then it became huge. I guess it was. When there was like the punk bands, and I grew up in L.A., so when the punk bands were in L.A., there was KMET, KLOS, and they were playing like Ozzy. Not so much heavy metal. There was no Metallica. That was more of an underground thing than anything. That's so right. It was kind of a weird time.
It was the birthplace of a lot. Eh? It was like that time period was big transformation for music. It was good times. Those were good times. So you're playing in. You've been taught guitar. You pick up the bass. You've put the saxophone away. Have you ever picked up the saxophone since then? Do you ever just pull it out and?
No, I tried. It ain't working out.
I had the same experience with trumpet.
I told myself, I was like, what, I'm gonna trade. I got tons of guitars and tons of bass. I'm gonna find somebody with a nice saxophone and try it one day. I mean, I'm not saying I never will, but I haven't really. I'm so busy that there's no time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally understand that. It's funny because I'm 48 now, and it was only earlier this year that I finally decided to part ways with the trumpet that I played when I
Oh,
was
gotcha.
when I was in elementary school. It's sort of like I I held it in my hands. I am never going to play you. I'm sorry.
Right.
And off it went. Handed it off to somebody else. Okay, so tell me about your first band or your first couple of bands. You're playing bass.
Well, actually, my first band I was in high school. It was a band called Degenerates. It was just I would say it's metal. It was more metal than it was punk, if anything. But I mean, back then it was like I never owned my own bass. I never owned my own amp or anything. So I was constantly just borrowing people's gear until later on, the same band I was in for a while, they changed members and stuff. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna kick you out of your kick," so they kicked me out of the band. And then finally, I was able to get my own gear and everything. And then, so I was in a band called Degenerate. We played backyard parties. I think maybe we only played maybe 2 clubs. I mean, the band was maybe around, I don't know. Seems like the band was around for like 3 or 4 years, but probably like 2 years at the top or whatever. Then I started. It was weird when I was actually in the punk band. I was only playing the first 2 strings on the bass because that's all the basses that I would borrow. And it was like somebody's bass that they tried playing or whatever. And they just put it away, whatever. But it was only 2 strings, so I really only knew how to play the first 2 strings. And then we got the singer, who was a bass player, who had he had a bass with 4 strings and everything. And then one of my friends was like, "Hey, well, when the drummer does this, why don't you do that?" And that's how I learned how to incorporate the other 2 strings on the bass. And then when I heard Steve Harris, it was all over.
Yeah,
I heard Steve Harris, and I was like, "Wow, okay, that's
game
how bass
changer.
is supposed to be played." But the whole thing is there's people doing that before Steve Harris. That I didn't, so I had to basically backtrack.
Had to go discover some
John Paul
UFO
Jones.
and scorpions and stuff,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, John Paul Jones from Zeppelin and Geezer Butler from Black Sabbath. I mean, so I had to basically, once I heard Steve Harris, I was like, wow, this is killer. But then I was like, okay, now I backtrack and start discovering other bass players as well. And then I started playing, stopped playing punk rock, got into heavy metal band, started playing a bunch of covers and stuff like that, and was in a band doing originals, a band called FTR, and we changed the name into Diary. Then from there, I joined the band called Still Profit. I've been in Still Profit, I will say, 89.
Wow.
Or something like that. I mean, I'm still in the band. I mean, the band, we're still doing records and we still play. We don't tour or whatever. I mean, we just released a record. That was this year. It was this year of April. We just released a new record, The Goddess Machine. Now I'm working on a new Body Count record. So
Yeah, and you got a new singer in Steel Prophet, eh? You've had some lineup changes over the years.
Oh yeah, we had major lineup changes. It's only been me and Steve for a long time. I even got kicked out of that band at one point too. We had Nader from I don't know if you remember a band called London.
Yeah.
Well, that guy was in Still Profit. He tried to take over and everything. He kicked me out of the band.
Oh wow.
And that was at the same time I was in Body Count. But see, the whole thing was I was on tour with Prince as well, and I was out. I forgot what state I was in, but he was like, "Well, we're about ready to shoot a video. If you don't show up for this video shoot, then you're out of the band." I'm like, well, I'm gonna quit my job.
I choose Prince. Wow.
Yeah, I got kicked out of that band. But yeah, Still Profit, we've been through lineup changes for a long time. I'm happy to say we have all original members now, but with a new singer, and it's great.
This happens a lot with bands. I had a good chat recently with someone else who was a signed artist in the 80s and sort of got to a point and it just all seemed to fall apart. And he and I were talking about the fact that a lot of bands from the 80s, they hit and then they disappeared. And, a lot of bands, and it looks like Steel Prophet probably falls into that, has really kind of clawed its way back to a place where they're comfortable, they're able to do the music that they want to do, they found a pattern that works for them, and that seems to be what you have with Steel Prophet right now, and where you've kind of like, okay, this is where we were then, we've had a whole bunch of lineup changes and ups and downs, but we're in a spot. Let's make some music. Let's get the people back that we want to have in the band. Let's do this thing. And you found sort of like a nice niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're basically, me and Steve, we just carried the band until, and I mean, we did Whack and we did toured Germany, we all over Europe, did a bunch of major festivals and everything. And it was like, you know what? Let's give these guys a chance. That's never did any of this stuff. We've done it with all these different guys. So let's just bring in the other guys and let's give them a chance to experience all this stuff. So we took them over to Germany, played I think, how many shows we played with these guys? We only actually played one show with the original lineup so far in Germany. But we plan on, doing more shows out there with this new record with the old lineup. I mean, we haven't played with those guys, let's see, 99?
Oh, wow.
Now, and me and Steve, we started experimenting with different guitar players and drummers since 99.
So not quite through the 90s, but that sure was a period of change for you then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
so
99, that's the 99 to I think it was like 2000. Oh my God, I forget when we got the guys back together.
Yeah.
It's crazy how this stuff works,
Yeah. So you had you've done for some live shows. You had this kind of blew my mind. So you've had a few different people in the band, but you had Neil Turbin, ex of Anthrax, play with you for a brief period.
Well, I've never I was still in Steel Prophet, but I never played any shows with Neil Turbin.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, gang, you feeling sluggish, trying to find some energy for the gym, or wishing you could shed a few pounds and are struggling to find just the thing to help you? Then check out High on Life Superfoods. High on Life is the leading provider of hemp-based, nutrient-rich supplements intended to instill optimal health to those who wish to perform at the next level. Listen, I'm not just talking here. I use High on Life products myself. LIT is an amazing hemp-based, vegan, raw food blend that helps reset your body's nutrient balance and kickstarts your metabolism to get you going through the day. Use it as a shake, in a smoothie, or try my favorite. Mix it up with some cold coconut milk and cocoa, and voila, LIT ice cream. Do your body a favor, everyone. Go to highonlifesuperfoods.com and enter the code ForceFed10 on checkout to receive 10% off your order. But don't just listen to me. High on Life is used by some of your favorite bands: Suffocation, Trivium, Dark Angel, Testament, Body Count, and many more. These guys know what it means to need to keep up their metal pace. Try it and you will see the difference. I have. highonlifesuperfoods.com. Get it.
I can't quit my day job and go play some bar or whatever. But I mean, they didn't really play any like major shows with Neil Turbin.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I don't think they've actually played a full set with Neil Turbin.
Oh, is that right?
I know they played a couple of shows with them. I mean, they did like some Frost and Fire festival or something like that, and maybe another club or something like that. But yeah, I've never really played in the band with Neil. And actually, no, I've never done any shows. So I have no idea what he sounds like. I know he was great in Anthrax.
Yeah. He's put some stuff out over the years, and but it's never really picked up traction for him. I don't think that's
right.
Which is too bad. But you joined Steel Prophet in like '88.
Yeah, 89.
Yeah. Man,
let's see. And then, wow, I played in other bands, World in Pain. Body Count was like a weird thing. Well, I'm jumping all over the place. That's how I talk.
That's all right. We can go back.
Excuse me. The Body Count story for me. So the Body Count story for me was basically I used to work at this place called Bill's Place. It was a rehearsal spot where Mark Zonder from Face Warning used to own. And I used to work there before I actually started touring. And Body Count was one of the bands that rehearsed there. White Zombie was one of the bands that rehearsed there. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Stone Temple Pilots, you name it. There was all the bands that came in there and out of there. And I used to hear Body Count play, and I used to, listen to them and everything. I'm like, oh, these guys are really cool, Used to go in their room and see all their gear and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is killer, It's like all this gear, That was my thing when I worked in rehearsal spots. I was like, wow. I would open up these guys' room. I had the keys to the room, so I was able to just go in and check out their gear and what they're using and see how they were actually, like you said, the bands that have made it.
Yeah.
Because back then the bands like to show off their gear. Some bands like to do that now, but back then that's when you had the full stacks. You had all these different guitars and all that other stuff and and everything. And I used to just be in awe with all these people's gear. I was playing in another band at one time. Ernie was doing another. He was doing Body Count. Body Count came off tour, and he took interest in one of my bands, and he said, "Hey, me and Duff from Guns N' Roses, we're starting a record label. We want to sign your band." I was like, "Oh, okay." And wasn't Still Prophet. This was another band. It wasn't even World in Pain. It was another band that I was doing, and then later. He was like, you know what? Why don't we just start our own band? So then me, Ernie, and Pete Parada, who's now the drummer of Offspring, because me and Pete, we played in bands before. Actually, Pete played in Still Prophet with me. He played in World in Pain with me. And we're also in another band as well called No Future, a punk band. And anyways, we had a solo project with Ernie from Body Count. And there was one of the guys was managing Ernie at one point. He goes, "Oh, one day you'll be the bass player in Body Count." So I didn't play it any mind. Years went by, whatever. We were doing the Ernie C project for a little bit. That kind of died out. Then all of a sudden the Body Count thing came up, and it was like, and we started doing shows, and we did a U.S. tour and everything. And we did a record and everything, and that was it. I've been in the band ever since. And let's see. During that U.S. tour, we stopped touring, and then Ice was like, okay, well, now we got to line up. I want you guys to go home and write a record. Me and D-Rock, we spent months and months in the studio writing new songs and everything, and that's where we came up with Murder for Hire. D-Rock passed away, then we went through several members after that. And then finally, I had to take control, so to speak, and try to get the band in the right spot for the band to be an actual Body Count, to be a contending band, so to speak. Because now Body Count's known for the music, and being a really good band.
I was just thinking that there was a time that Body Count was Ice-T and a bunch of dudes, right? Like it was like
exactly.
There's been an evolution of Body Count from, and part of that probably has to do with Ice having such a varied career himself, right? He's kind of got his finger in lots of pies, so it makes it easy for Body Count if somebody is there, and it sounds like you play a big part of this role to just sort of keep pushing the band machine, along, nudging the band machine along, so that when the time is ripe, Ice-T can participate again because there's something to participate in.
Yeah, and the band is now more content. We can play with all these other bands now. Before, the band, to me, when the Body Count came out, it was just a band, and Ice-T was the singer, and that was it. Musically, I wasn't really feeling it. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, those songs are just like whatever. It's like, I'm into heavy metal. I know how to write heavy metal music, and those songs to me were not the greatest songs. They're anthems, but they were not the greatest songs until as of late. And now, like I said, I basically warped the band, got the right guys that want to play metal, that understand metal, and now we're known for a metal band, or as a Body Count, but we're a step higher than the band's ever been.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Musically.
You can totally tell. I've always listened to Body Count since I first saw Body Count play as part of Ice's show on Lollapalooza, right? And and you don't have to have great songs to be a great band. And Body Count's been a band that's been fantastic since day one. But you can totally tell if you're listening to the early stuff, the stuff that was on OG And the trajectory, like your last album, really upped the game. Like it had a totally different feel. I don't know if it was if it was songwriting alone or if it was songwriting and production, but it's definitely it definitely upped the game. I think for Body Count. Bloodlust for me was sort of like probably the hardest hitting Body Count album I've heard. And that's not taking anything away from anything else, right? Like it's not shit talking any of the previous albums. It's just in this trajectory of different albums. It's like Bloodlust really sort of like set the bar. This is where we are now. Unfortunately for you, you're gonna have to beat that, right?
So you have Bloodlust. Have you ever heard Manslaughter?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that was the step.
That's right.
So that was the step. It was Manslaughter. Then it's like how we're gonna beat Manslaughter. Okay. Now we got Bloodlust. Okay. Now how we're gonna meet. So basically, we're getting ready for some shows and Ice. You know, when we do rehearsals, that's when Ice lives here. Well, I'm in New York right now, but Ice lives in New Jersey, and the band lives in L.A. So when Ice comes to L.A., that's when we can get business done. So we were rehearsing. I had a bunch of records to sign, and he's signing the records. It's like, so Vince, how are we gonna top Bloodlust? I just said, look, don't worry, we got it. So now we're in the middle. We're like 75% working on Carnivore. We're 75% there. I took time off on tour because I'm currently on tour right now as we speak with an artist, and they were able to let me take April off to go to Jersey and work on a new record with Ice. So now that one's coming out, and we're 75% there. We still got some more finishing touches to do on it, and that one's gonna kill Bloodlust. Yeah.
So is the songwriting handled mostly by you now, or is it you and Ernie, or is it who does the majority of the song writing?
We have a songwriting team now.
Okay.
Basically, we have a songwriting team, and basically it's Will Putney, myself, Ice, and Will Dorsey. And I let Ernie and Juan come in later on and put their finishing touches on it. But mainly it's just been that's how the record's been since Bloodlust.
Cool.
And it's more getting guys to actually, I mean, Ice understands metal. That's one thing I can say about Ice. He understands metal. That's what I like about him the most, because he can say, hey, Vince, I need a riff like this. All right, cool. Damn, it's done. I have a drummer, which Will Dorsey understands, and he understands music and, A to Z. And that's what it takes. You need people that understand to have a producer, Will Putney, who, I don't know if you know who Will Putney is or not.
He's the guy you work with in the studio all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's basically the other member of Body Count.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we do. We go into the room and we just like, okay, how are we going to do this? And we just go at it. As a matter of fact, I'm still in New York right now, and Will's in the middle of like 3 other records, and I still have to go back over there and work on some more stuff with him.
So when do you think you'll have that record out for everybody to listen to?
Oh, that record's coming out this year.
Nice.
Yeah, that release date is actually May 15th. I mean, not May 15th, November 15th.
And that's not as far away.
Well, I take that back. I would say sometime the end of the year.
Okay.
But definitely, we're shooting for the end of the year.
And that one's going to be called Carnivore.
Carnivore, yeah.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about let's talk about the lyrical content a bit about for Body Count. I mentioned, I was this white kid from White Town. I think about this sometimes because I was really into. I mean, I've been a metalhead, but I've never just been. I think about this sometimes. I was when I was 13. I'd one day I'd wear a Judas Priest T-shirt to school, and the next day I'd wear like a stupid shirt with one of those skinny leather ties that Duran Duran made popular, right? And
right.
And I've always been into all kinds of music, so it wasn't a stretch for me. I started listening to different kinds of things as I got a little bit older in my teenage years, and I started listening to Public Enemy, and I started listening to Ice-T, and I mean those were I heard Run DMC and other stuff, but it was really Public Enemy and Ice-T that for whatever reason spoke to me. And I think it was the educational aspect of that, because for me, I had no idea what the world was like out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I came from a very huge bubble of white privilege, and it sort of started making me think about what life is like for everybody else. And I think this is part of the magic for me, for not just Ice-T, but Body Count, in that there was the magic there, that there was an educational component to the lyrics. There was sort of like, hey, this is life. This is life on the streets. This is life for a black person. This is and there was that real social justice and conscience there that everybody ought to be thinking about. But then there was also just rocking out. There was like just loving the music and making things that made you feel good, right? And
Right.
I've always really appreciated that juxtaposition, how you can give you an example. When I listen to some older stuff like the Dead Kennedys, I feel like I'm being bombarded with politics.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like I'm just like, every song is smashing me in the face with an opinion. And with Body Count and Ice-T and even Public Enemy, I didn't. I felt I was being bombarded with the facts and the truth. And then, but shit, this is music. Let's have a good time.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, back then, all punk rock was basically, it was all about politics.
Yeah.
If you go back, it's all about politics. Everything that goes on in the streets, but in a different perspective. I'm talking about punk rock, that is. So it's basically, punk rock was about I mean, you look at Discharge, same thing. It's all about politics as well.
Yeah.
And it's about what goes on in the streets and everything. Ice-T just basically puts it all in perspective. I mean, he talks about, there's a little political stuff in there.
For sure.
That's like, yeah, listen to it, but it's not like blatant. It's like straight politics. I mean, Ice basically, I mean, it's just like, if you write a good song, he's gonna write good lyrics, because that's he sees so much, hears so much, reads so much, and I mean, the guy, it's crazy how it's crazy, because we'll be in the studio and he'll hear the music, and he'll like just sit with pad and paper or something, and he goes, oh God, you guys are gonna love this line. And he'll just like come with this crazy ass stuff. We're like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, where'd you come up with that?
So he's still
he writes so much stuff. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I find it to me it's impressive that it's so relevant still, right? I mean,
yeah.
But it's still, you had No Lives Matter, and then you have Raining Blood. It's like, okay, we're gonna give you some truth, and now we're gonna just rock the fuck out.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about Body Count I've always really appreciated, and so that and I'm glad to see that.
Because Ice understands metal.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
You know, he understands metal. He's smart. You know, he understands. I mean, basically, the whole song was like, he called me up one day. He goes, I want to cover Raining Blood. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
That was his idea?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And then when he said that, I go, well, I was like, man, there's this part that comes on before Raining Blood. And I realized, well, that's a part from Post Mortem.
Post Mortem, yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do Raining Blood, but there's this part. So we're going to play the Post Mortem part. But if you play Post Mortem first, and people really won't get it. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just attach that to the end.
Oh, so
we flipped it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk too. I mean, this isn't. This is me wanting to dive into you a little bit. Not so much Ice-T, but he's a huge part, obviously, of Body Count.
Of course.
He's the household name in the band, right?
Oh yeah. It's crazy because I mean, it's like I don't go around telling people that I'm in Body Count at all. I give up on it. I mean, I never really liked mixing, my work and everything else. I let people figure it out, so to speak.
Hey,
but
you're that
a
guy.
lot of people really don't even know who Body Count is. Tell you the truth, it's the craziest thing.
There, you had to definitely be in a certain window to have come across Body Count, right? You really need,
Yeah.
and because Body Count has existed now since 1990, but it's not like Body Count is a full-time touring. You're not locked in that the record industry cycles, right? You're not doing an album, a tour, an album, a tour, an album. You're kind of you're working it out. You're making it fit in with everybody's schedule, and that's the niche that you found. So
What's funny is I said the other day, he was like, you know what, Vince, now the band's got cred, because people are like, oh, I'm in Body Count, and they're like, who's Body Count? Oh, well, I guess we were just nominated for a Grammy. So now he's got everybody's attention.
now Body Count's got cred, and then people are like, who's Body Count? It's like, oh, okay, you need some more. Yeah, let's keep working on that cred then. I think Body Count always had credibility.
Oh yeah.
And I think it comes back to the magic of Ice really connecting with metal and introducing.
I say this next record's going to do it. I think this next record's going to do it for us.
It's just going to really put you over the top a bit.
I would say the next two records,
Yeah.
if we do another record, but I would say this next record would definitely do it, because there's people still that they really don't get it. They're still having a hard time getting it, but now they're starting to get it. My thing is, I see people, I'm out in the street all the time. I see kids on skateboards and stuff like that, and I see them wearing all these different shirts. One of these days, I'm going to see kids like wearing Body Count shirts. Until that day happens, and I know that we've actually done something.
So, do you think people still look at? And I know there was definitely some of this at the time when Body Count first came out. There was a lot of people that kind of looked at it as a novelty. Oh, that's
exactly.
Oh, look. Oh, and I think I've heard Ernie C talk a little bit about this. Like, this isn't just a rapper who decided to try out being in a heavy metal band, and there are others who have done stuff like that. But this is Ice being in a metal band, and it's been a bit of a challenge to sort of surmount that novelty act idea. Like, some people think that this is just a fun little thing that he's trying out. I mean, he's been trying it out now for what, almost 30 years. So
yeah,
it's not
to be
trying
honest,
it out.
To be honest, I'm going to go back up on the original Body Count.
Yeah,
it was Ernie singing.
Yeah, that's right.
And Ice was the background singer. That's the original Body Count.
So that was the formation of it, right? And then
yeah,
by the time they hit the stage with Ice-T, Ice was doing some of the vocals, but he never thought he was a very good singer,
right?
But
he still doesn't, anyways. But whatever.
But I can't imagine listening to Body Count without his voice now, though, right? It's like,
well, yeah, of course.
So are you?
I mean, I do some of the lead vocals now too, as well, though.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I sing on Postmortem. I sing
that's right.
the first
I heard that.
parts in Manslaughter. And sometimes I double up his vocals, and but yeah.
I was listening to Bloodlust last night while I
Nice.
was just doing stuff around the house, and there were a couple times I'm listening to the singing, I'm like, that's not Ice, but it didn't even, I don't know why it didn't even occur to me to go, who's doing that? Because there were some pieces in there. I'm like, that is not Ice-T.
Right. Hey, to be honest, when he first started singing, not singing, but when he started doing his vocals, I mean, I take it back from I don't know if you heard of Gears of War.
Yeah.
Okay. When he first sang that, because basically we did that undercover. He basically called me up and goes, I need a song. I'm doing this thing. I need you to write a song. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll write a song. When he first did vocals on that, I was like, who in the hell is this? I was like, this doesn't sound like Ice. So I'm like, all right, I get it now. He wants to sing over heavy metal.
Yeah.
And that's where he stands out. Even when we did Manslaughter and his vocals came out, I'm like, whoa, is this a kid that he hired or something? Because when he hears good music, he can put it out there. His voice sounds younger every time it's crazy.
That's been part of the evolution of the band too, right? I mean, when the first Body Count recordings came out, some of it was Ice yelling over it. It seemed to me. And,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you know, this is not a diss. I mean, but it was sort of clear that he hadn't quite found his voice, his metal voice,
No,
right?
no.
But as it's progressed, I mean, there's some songs on there. He's just belting it out, and that's
Yeah.
that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit more, Vince, about your day job. You work,
Okay.
if you don't mind. So you work as a guitar tech, a keyboard tech, a bass tech.
Yeah.
You've talked. You mentioned having worked for Prince.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was Chris Cornell's last guitar tech.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And man, that was a tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was crazy.
You've worked for. So can you talk about some of the folks you've worked for? Like you've Rob was mentioning some of them to me, and I'm like, wow, you're a busy man.
Boy, I worked for Soilwork. I worked for Hypocrisy. I worked for Fate's Warning. I worked for Murder Dolls. I worked for Wyclef. I worked for Katy Perry. I worked for Usher. I worked for Halford for a while. You know, when Halford was doing his Halford band.
Yeah, that was a great band.
Yeah. I worked for them. Death Clock, Biohazard.
Nice.
Yeah. Like I said, well, Prince, Chris Cornell. Well, now I work for Chris Cornell during his acoustic stuff. Then he called me to do Soundgarden. So yeah. So Chris Cornell / Soundgarden. I'm currently right now. I'm out with Ariana Grande.
Oh, that's cool. I like everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about this when we were talking earlier, and that we sort of.
Oh, and I also am still currently. I work for Richie Sambora.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And that's another thing when we're talking about 80s and music. It's like I used to make fun of that kind of music, and this guy's like he's got the crazy house, and his catalog is crazy, and the guy's rich.
Yeah, there's some of those out there, eh?
You know, it's like I made fun of that music, and this guy is like, I go to his house. I mean, I work for him, so I go to his house, and I'm like, oh wow, and I just made. And that's one guy. He doesn't even have to work anymore.
No,
if he doesn't want to, he don't have to write music anymore if he doesn't want to. And that's the I would say that is the where the categorization of made it.
Yeah, that was the dream.
That's it right there.
That was the
that's
dream.
it right there.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember. You talk about I didn't like that kind of music, and it's totally true. I remember. Like I enjoyed the first two Bon Jovi records, right? But Slippery When Wet came out, and every girl I knew went crazy for it. And that's and then I switched off. I was just like, I don't like it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I gotta say that when I look back and I listen to those tunes, I'm lying. I do like some of those songs. Yeah, I totally see why those guys are suddenly rolling in dough. They wrote good songs, good execution, good performance, good musicians. Not liking it was me just being pouty about the whole thing, but
yeah, exactly. Well, I wasn't going to go playing that kind of music. Come on.
No. There's some stuff that you can do and some stuff that we can't do, and I definitely would never have been able to play that kind of stuff myself.
No.
So.
No.
I lost my thought. I was gonna ask you. Oh yeah, we were talking about you were saying that when you heard Steve Harris and Iron Maiden that it was a game changer for you.
Oh yeah.
So what's your favorite Iron Maiden album?
Oh gosh, man, that you screwed me up right there. Because I like Dickinson and I like Di'Anno.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a toss up. I would say my favorite Di'Anno record is the first record.
Okay.
My favorite Dickinson record, I would have to say Peace of Mind.
Cool. I have a similar dilemma. If I used to sing in bands, but I was more the Paul Di'Anno style.
Oh, nice.
Right, and a little bit more gruff. My favorite was Killers. My all-time favorite Iron Maiden album is Killers. However, Power Slave just.
Oh yeah.
Like Number of the Beast. Yeah, okay, that's a great album. But for me, Power Slave is the one that I just Power Slave and Live After Death.
There you go.
Are on my if you get lost or you get trapped on a desert island and you can only have 2 albums, I need one of those two.
Right.
Right.
There you go.
But it's sort of funny. Like it's the same thing. I love Paul Di'Anno. But and I think he said this. He actually said this in his biography that because he said, I'm going to answer the question once or for all: Bruce Dickinson or Paul Di'Anno? And he's like, well, obviously Paul Di'Anno for the first two records, but they were ready to grow and I was ready to leave. So Bruce Dickinson is the right singer for Iron Maiden.
Yeah, and I wasn't really ready for the high pitched vocals or anything neither, because I was into punk rock too.
Yeah, for sure. But Di'Anno developed like his voice. He had some of those screams.
So he was more of a punk singer to me, because I wasn't ready for that high stuff to ship, because I was still in the punk rock. So when I heard Iron Maiden, Paul Di'Anno was a perfect fit for me.
Yeah.
And then when I slowly start getting more into metal, Claw's Mind and Dio and stuff like that, then when Dickinson came around, I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Even Di'Anno developed that higher, like he's got a pretty good scream too now. So
yeah,
even at our ripe age.
Right.
Awesome. Vincent, I really appreciate your time today. So we're going to look forward to hearing Carnivore at the end of this year. I'm looking forward to it. I really appreciate that you were able to take some time out of your day. I know that you
no problem.
You're on the road, so you've got a pretty hectic schedule.
Oh yeah.
And this has been great. I appreciate your time.
Cool. And also, well, you already know about Rob's High on Life Superfoods, but yeah, I totally promote it.
Yeah, let's talk. You know what? Let's talk about that a little bit if you got another couple minutes.
Sure.
High on Life Superfoods is the one and only sponsor that I have for this podcast, and it started off being because of my friendship and my relationship with Rob, of course, but it's turned into. I mean, High on Life Superfoods is kind of like my go-to. I had some this morning before I got on the call with you. I mixed myself up the next level and had a glass of that and came in here and when I'm done, I'll have some lit and get on with my day. But
nice.
Is that helping you on the road? Is that helping you sort of keep your energy and your health sort of?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I take the the lit. It's like 4 scoops of that, and that's and some almond milk, and that's pretty much my. Besides, I mean, that takes place in my coffee, basically.
So you don't drink coffee now?
You know, it's like crazy, because ever since I've been on the road, this time around, I tell my girlfriend, it's like when I'm home, it's always Starbucks. Like I haven't even paid attention to any of that. Worrying about Starbucks has basically just been that, just the lit, and lit and almond milk.
Nice.
And I barely even mess around with coffee.
Huh. I'm gonna have to try it with almond milk, because I usually just I just add water. I usually just add water to it, and
okay.
I dilute it a little bit. Like I make it a little bit more watery than the recommended dosage, but that sort of gets me through. Like I will drink that slowly through the morning, and that kind of keeps me going.
Right.
But I'm still a coffee addict. I still like to have my Java in the morning.
I gotcha.
But
maybe
yeah,
that'll be the next one.
Yeah, make something coffee flavored, and maybe I can wean myself off. So High on Life Superfoods is a I think a pretty stellar line of products, and I'm super proud of my friend for our friend. I'll say super proud of our friend.
Yeah, he did well with that.
Yeah, he's and it seems to be built, like made for people on the road, right? Like just the woke bars, man, those things they're a go-to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you go through those and they're crazy.
That's what I told him. I had him on the show, and I'm like, I got to be careful with those, because I eat one and then 10 minutes later I'm not hungry, but I'm looking at them.
Yeah.
I'm looking at them. I like to eat, so
those don't last long.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Vincent, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
Enjoy life on the road. I don't know that I could do it, but I'm glad someone like you can.
That's why I do it, for everybody that can't.
That's right. It's not for everybody, and thank God for those it is for. Awesome. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, take care.
Have a great day.
Be safe out there.
Thank you.